afternoon, everyone. My name is Samalit Hogan with the Small Business Development Center. I'm the Regional Director of the Western Mass Office. I am very proud to be here today, starting off today's webinar, Adapting to Thrive. We have three great speakers today that Lisa Ducharme, the Executive Director for the New England Veterans Chamber of Commerce, will be introducing later on. I did want to thank all of the organizations that are making these webinars possible, including SCORE, the Center for Women in Enterprise, Valley Community Development, Common Capital, Franklin County CDC, Mastro's Capital Corporation, of course, the New England Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network, including our offices at Salem State University and Clark University. And of course, last but not least, we want to thank our stakeholders, the Small Business Administration, the State of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, as well as the UMass Amherst Eisenberg School of Management, and we are accredited by America's SBDC. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time. I want to let you know that we have contact information on the screen for many of the folks here in the region, in the Pioneer Valley, that are ready and available to help you with your business. Any questions that you have in regards to your business, these are the folks you want to contact. This is the contact information for all of their offices throughout the state for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network. You can also visit us on the web at msbdc.org. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa Ducharme, and she will be presenting today's speakers. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I am going to, if all goes well, share my screen. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. I was a little bit lost there. So. We'll get you a little bit upbeat here. Thank you and welcome everyone. Today we are presenting our first in a series of 3 webinars, Adapting Your Business to Thrive, Exploring Ideas and Solutions for Your Business. We are lucky enough to have Lynn Lowder, Fred Parrish, and Jim Wong. And as Sam said, I'm Lisa Ducharme. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. And if you're on Facebook Live, also please make sure that you type them there as well. We will be monitoring them and bringing them up during the presentation. Without further ado, I am actually going to ask each of our speakers to introduce themselves. Lynn, if you wouldn't mind starting, please.
Sure. My name is Lynn Lowder. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Veteran Business Project. We help veterans and spouses that are looking to get into business, matching them up with businesses that exist already that are looking to sell. I'm a United States Marine by background and also an attorney. Thank you.
Okay, Jim.
Yes, and I am Fred Parrish. I am the founder and CEO of the Profit Experts and the Profit Institute. And we provide a whole range of different products and services to help small business owners really manage those financial aspects of their business a whole lot more effectively with a lot more targeted approach. And we provide training and software. We have a couple of books, and we can provide support, a number of different things that we can do to help.
Jim.
Hi there. Nice to be back in New England remotely. It's been many years since I went to school in Cambridge. So hi to all of you and thank you for attending. I've been working in restaurants since the age of 14. So I know many of you attending are in the service industry and in food service. So I'm going to share some ideas with you on how to thrive under COVID-19 and under the circumstances we're in today. So welcome to all of you.
So today we're going to talk about moving forward and what you can do to adapt your business. We're going to cover some common areas, starting with finances. Fred, I know you and I have talked in length about the importance of understanding where you are financially based on the current environment. Can you give some best tips to do that?
Yeah, sure. And I think right now, this is more important than it ever has. And the reason being is because everyone knows that today is quite different than 6 months ago and certainly 12 months ago. But I think the point here is that it is going to be different 6 and 12 months from now. And unfortunately, we're not 100% sure what that's going to look like. So the ability to stay on top of your financial operations, dynamics, conditions, however you want to describe it, and be proactive and be predictive in the way you are looking at the business. How are we operating today? What does that look like next week, next month, next year? And be updating that information as conditions change so that you can always know where the company is heading. There's so many different things that are changing really day to day right now. If we do not have a way of staying on top of that, even the best possible decisions really could result in some unhappy outcomes if we're not very careful about how we execute those.
And Jim, you and I had previously talked about the CDFIs and other things that people need to consider in this environment and what they need to do.
Yeah, we are, I'm on the board of a CDFI out here in California. And when the government allocated the second tranche of Paycheck Protection Program monies, we were included, our CDFI, in helping to disperse the monies, but we also are dispersing money for a lot of the municipalities. So those of you who are operating on the PPP, if you were lucky enough to get some money, don't forget to reach out to your local chambers and local government because they may be handing out grants as well. So take advantage of it.
You know what? I'm not sure, Jim, that everybody knows what a CDFI is. I said it, but I'm not sure everybody knows what they are and how to find them.
Ah, very good. Thanks, Lisa. Community Development Financial Institutions were written into law under President Clinton in 1994. There are 1,000 CDFIs around the country, so you'll find them in every major city, 2 or 3 of them sometimes. And their job is to cater to small businesses. Most of them give microloans. The one that I'm on the board of in California, Main Street Launch, gives microloans up to $250,000. And what's different about the way we do business, we are chartered by the Treasury Department to focus on low to moderate income families, small businesses, and people of color. So since the military is so diverse, most of us would qualify. So take advantage of any expansion capital you might need. or startup capital by going to your local CDFI. You can find them just by Googling CDFI.
Thank you. Lynn, do you have any comments in this area in reference to how people and what people need to really look at right now in reference to their finances for the current environment?
Well, you know, Fred Parrish, for those of us that know him, he's like the old ad for the American Express card, don't leave home without him. Don't get in business and don't stay in business without him. Fred knows his stuff. The lack of financial acumen to be able, the ability to manage your cash flows in business is the Achilles heel of most businesses that do not make it. Therefore, I think that's why we all feel that Fred should lead the charge here starting out in terms of the information given. I'll have some other comments on that later on in light of opportunities that are now beginning to surface in this COVID-19 environment. It's not all bad news.
We always appreciate when it's not bad news. Now, some artists and businesses have brought up that they don't know where they stand and are concerned as many wholesale clients are canceling the orders while the direct sale options such as expos, crafts, craft market, etc. are being canceled. What advice can you give businesses who don't know where they stand right now? And who would like to jump in on that first?
Well, again, I always look at things from a financial perspective, and really any decision that you make in business will result in some kind of financial impact on the business. I think the first thing that, again, we have to do is understand what is the situation today? How much cash do I have? What kind of business am I going to be able to generate? And then over time, how do we expect that to change, and what resources do we have to weather that storm? In terms of how to really understand those operating dynamics, you mentioned, Lisa, that some of their suppliers are having problems. They're obviously the venues where they do a lot of their business are being canceled or at least delayed until things are more under control, more predictable, more manageable. So that is a very difficult time. If you have a lot of fixed costs, you have to find a way to reduce those as much as possible. If they are mostly variable costs, as you produce your product, you have to invest in materials and in your time. Those are easier to manage, at least from an operating perspective. Certainly, if you don't have any revenue and you don't have any costs, then that means you're not being paid, and obviously that is a problem. But really need to understand the aspects of the business that are fixed versus variable. Think about how you're pricing. I'm a recovering accountant, so any advice that I give you about social media marketing or any kind of approach like that is just take it for what it's worth. But I mean, it seems to me that, unfortunately, we're going to have to change the business model if those conditions continue for an extended period of time. You just have to look at the business differently. I know that everyone is trying to sell things online right now, and you're competing with the Walmarts and the Amazons of the world. But if you have a unique product and you have a specific market or target audience, you can be pretty targeted in the way you approach that. And again, look at what it takes for you to generate enough revenue in order to get the cash flow you need to get through to the next stage of this whole situation. And frankly, we just don't know what that looks like. And you're going to have to be able to adapt as quickly as possible, pivot, as they say. You'll come to inflection points a whole lot more often now than you have in the past. And you're going to have to make decisions quickly, and you will have to change direction a lot of times before we get to the other side of this.
Well, and I think many of you are making changes in your plans a week at a time. So you probably have never made changes as quickly as you've had to do in the past 8 weeks. And those of you in the service industry, there's probably a lot of pent-up demand. I know I'm tired of eating at home and would love to sit in a restaurant. So that pent-up demand is there. And so create a new report card focusing on how you're going to capture that pent-up demand. I know a lot of people have not had gone to a salon, gotten a haircut for a long time. So expect the surge and think of that whole, don't look just at your own ecosystem. Include your customers as part of your culture. So I know many of you are bringing your employees back. I think it's time to start thinking, okay, what kind of a culture have I developed with my customers, and start to capitalize on the goodwill that maybe has taken you years, if not decades, to establish. People are loyal to those who provide great customer service. But listen to Fred, read his book. You're getting it for free thanks to Fred. Read it. That taught me so much that it's keeping me on track.
You know, I'd like to piggyback on that one, Jim, because I think it's important that we do listen to our customers. And one of the most important things that I like to remind businesses is that if you are an artisan business, you know that you already have a customer base, and ask them for ideas on how they could suggest that you actually sell your product, because even though you're going to have to come up with a different way, and we know that the world is so noisy with the social media and other avenues, find other avenues like rosieslist.org. If you're a veteran or a spouse, or military spouse, you can actually sell your merchandise on her website. So there's a whole bunch of other avenues, and if you collaborate with other organizations, I think that that's going to be a win-win for you.
And I think you have to be very acute in looking at your demographics. Which group is the most likely to spend money during the pandemic and afterwards? Since I owned a bunch of pizza restaurants, one of the things I did was send free pizzas to the disc jockeys at those radio stations that cater to my market. And believe it or not, my biggest spenders were teenagers, because they're living at home. Dad or mom is paying tuition, so they have a lot of discretionary money, and they listen to the radio. So I had our delivery folks deliver free pizzas to the disc jockeys. And of course, while they're on the air, they would say, wow, this is great pizza. That was cheap advertising. So think of, we're going to talk about thinking out of the box. Well, that's one. And when you reopen, I know a lot of you are partially open, and you've got signs in front of your establishment saying, we're open. Well, that's what everybody else is doing. Do something different. Put a welcome sign and a smile on that sign, so that you can be treating people a little bit differently. That slight differentiation can go a long ways.
Lynn, did you want to say anything before I went on to the next one?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks. So we happen next to be talking about hair salons and brick and mortars. So hair salons and brick and mortar stores have stated that they're concerned as to how they adapt to the social distancing and the hygiene protocols are going to be very challenging, as well as additional supplies that they're going to be required. What is the best way to help them reshape their narrative, because there is going to be such a difference, and it's not going to be the same feel when you walk into a hair salon or a brick and mortar anymore? Not for a while anyway.
Well, safety is first priority, not only for your employees, but for people who frequent your establishment. You're going to have, or Lisa's going to host a separate webinar next Thursday to talk about how to bring your employees back safely. Given the protests and everything else we're seeing, I know some of you are afraid of what might happen. Next Thursday, make sure you attend the webinar, because Ty Smith, who's a retired Navy SEAL, is going to be able to coach you through that process.
Yeah, and I think that what I'm seeing is, as I go around, I'm in the Dallas area, and things started opening up here a few weeks ago. And so I've been to a few restaurants. I actually went and got my hair cut so I could get rid of the man bun. And that's my accountant's humor. So what I have noticed is there are some very specific things that restaurants are doing, that the different department stores and places like Walmart and the other grocery stores. They have aisles that are one way. They have stickers on the floor that are 6 feet apart. So you know how to manage the social distancing and to not go down an aisle the opposite direction of what the normal flow is. I think you can do the same thing by going around and looking at like businesses, or even if there isn't someone that is a direct competitor to you, there are probably businesses that are near you. Just get an idea of what they are doing, how they might be changing their business, and maybe you can pick up something that you hadn't thought of that can help you get that additional 5 or 10 or hopefully more % in revenue that will get you over that break-even point, and you can start to come back with some cash and make some good decisions, and over time get back to some level of normalcy.
Great idea. $100 invested in plexiglass, so that if you're a hair salon, put some plexiglass up so people feel safe. Peace of mind is worth a lot. So even if you space the chairs 6 feet apart, or if you're in a restaurant, put some plexiglass up. Plexiglass and some screws can help people feel like they're very safe in your environment. So these are very small expenses that you can keep track of. Use Fred's advice on set up a new set of analytics to make sure that everything you do is going to impact the top line or the bottom line. So that's critical.
Lisa, one thing I'd like to say is, especially in the small business industry, if we're talking about hair salons, barbershops, things like that, it's all about relationships. It's all about being warm and friendly and servicing people. Just today, before I got on this call, my wife went down to have her eyes checked, various things, annual eye check. And I noticed that coming through the door of this large optical clinic was a welcome back sign. And please bear with us while we go through these protocols for your safety. Another thing, remember there's a smile behind this mask. Things like that. Try and imagine yourself if you're coming through the door. And I notice that when you go around with these masks on now, you all notice that it's very much anonymous in a sense. You cannot really see if there's a smile, if there's a scowl, or whatever's behind that mask. It's if people don't think that we're interactive as human beings, well, I'll tell you, this thing drives it home in spades. So if you're a small business owner or operator, put yourself in your position and say, how would I feel coming in here? Would I feel warm? Would I feel that people are thankful I'm here? Put people on notice. You're doing things for their safety, but very much you appreciate their business. Welcome back. We're here to serve you. Remember, there's a smile behind this mask. Things like that. Just, you know, it's a people-to-people business, folks. That's what it is.
Yeah, great point. The article, one of the articles from McKinsey that Lisa posted on reimagining the future and trying to thrive instead of just survive, they give an acronym called SHAPE, and the S as part of that SHAPE says, think like a startup. Well, if you're going to welcome people back into your store, how about spending $3 on balloons, color balloons, and build an archway in front of your door? One, it's going to attract a lot of attention, and it's going to feel welcoming to walk through the archway. $3. Is it worth spending? I think your customers will tell you.
You know, Jim, that reminds me of the book, The Power of Broke by Damon John. It's all about remembering what it was like when you had no money. And even if you have money, even if you've got the PPP or any of the other money, act as if you don't, because that's going to help you farther on down the line. And I think that one of the other things, especially if you're in a hair salon or another type of business, where you have to, the capes that they wear, they have to be thrown away. They can't save them. They have to be, so get creative, go to the dollar store, collaborate with other hair salons. When you buy in bulk, you can usually save a whole bunch of money. So maybe look at different ways to make those capes so that they're safe, they fall within the guidelines. Those are also some really great ways, but just like they said, just pretend you're broke. Go back to and keep it inexpensive. The simple sign that Lynn talked about, which was welcome back, and we got smiles behind the masks, those are priceless. And people are going to remember that as they're going in. Like Jim earlier said, you need to differentiate yourself from other people, and that's a great way to do it. I can't wait to go get my hair cut. I'm curious to see if they do any of that. Part of that acronym, the second letter is H, and it stands for humans are at the core. That idea to do the archway of balloons, that didn't come from me. That came from my employees, from the associates. And also, putting a smile on everybody's face, that's the best impression. It doesn't cost at all just to have everybody on your team greet people with a smile. It just sends so much good vibes throughout the store, throughout the restaurant. That don't underestimate those little things that you can do very cheaply.
Lisa, I was going to say one more thing too. This human interactive world that we are in, and we talk about networking, we talk about friendships, we talk about supporting one another, all those things. If you're in business for yourself, call your relatives, call your friends, call the local chamber of commerce, call everybody you know, and tell them, please spread the word. We're open for business. We would love to have people come in. We need their support. We need their help. Please help me get the word out. Ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're good, we'll help you. If you're not so good, you know, a little bit of question there. No, I'm kidding. I will always help my family.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We're all in this together. That's the point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, Lisa, something that comes to my mind, people right now are starved for entertainment. So anything that you could do to just provide some additional experience, even if you're getting a haircut, have a magician come in for an hour and do a bunch of magic or something. Get people into your place of business. For the artisans, if all of the craft shows and everything are shut down, maybe set something up in the parking lot at Walmart. Their parking lots aren't going to be completely full. Set something up at the end of the parking lot, work out a deal with them, and get some of your friends to come out. People are wanting to have things to do. And anywhere they have that opportunity, I think you are going to get people to come. Make sure that you've got the appropriate plexiglass and the spacing indicators, whether it's tape or some kind of formal sticker that you put on the ground, whatever that is. There's still ways to get this business done.
Well, and now we're actually on restaurants. So many restaurants take out is only about 10% of what they're making. So for those who didn't already have a strong client base, this creates a bigger challenge for them. Now they're coming back in phases, which is also a concern. And part of the concern is whether or not their staff is going to come back. When do they call out sick? And how many are going to call out sick at the same time? And especially since a lot of workers are relying on tips. And right now, a lot of people don't have a lot of money to give big tips to the folks in the restaurant. So what are some operational ideas they can explore?
Well, since I've been in the restaurant business most of my life, I did some studies and discovered that if you ask your wait staff to wear a name tag, tips go up 15%. Most people feel like, okay, if you're willing to share your name with me, then you must be proud of what you're serving. If you hide behind an apron and I don't even know who you are, I may not have such confidence. So have the wait staff say their name. And I think we're getting to that part of the year when al fresco dining is going to be okay. But make sure that give the menu ahead of time. People feel like, okay, they haven't had a dine out experience in a long time. Hand them out the menu while they're waiting in line so that it speeds up the table turns. You're doing that, it's going to look like you're treating your customers real well because you're giving them the menu ahead of time. But as an owner, you're just trying to speed up the table turn so you can make more money. So these are little things you can do that will help. And another thing for your employee safety, I know that wait staff don't get much pay. They depend on their tips. So a lot of them, even if they feel sick, are going to try to come to work. Can't blame them. Well, congratulations wanting to show up to work. Buy a handheld thermometer so you can take their temperature. And if they show a little fever, we have Fred and Lynn and I have a very good friend who's in the construction industry, and his construction workers, he just had 2 show up and they had fevers, and he told them to go home. But he also said, don't worry, I'm not going to dock your pay. You're going to go home with pay. So that keeps people honest, because the 2 of them said, oh, we just had some bad Chinese food. Like, no, I don't think so. Go home, you're going to be paid, but you're going to have to make it up to me. And it was an honor system, and it works like wonders to build up loyalty. No reason why we can't move further ahead. That's the difference between surviving and thriving. This is the time when you're going to be thinking twice as hard as you had to do in managing your small business. Well, it's good for you. Get those brain cells working.
So,
Yeah, my thought about that, Lisa, is that really those people and those businesses that are able to adapt are going to survive. Those that are not, if they're too rigid in the way they view the business, in the way they operate, if they're not willing to think about and make the effort to make the changes that are necessary, they may or may not.
Yeah, great point. Well, I think that when you as an owner, welcome your employees back, have a little chat with them to clarify who the customer is so that they keep that at the front of their brains. I did that when we had pizza restaurants in Brazil, and when the currency devalued in half, it was really scary times. People couldn't afford to come to restaurants. And so we had a lot of employees, and I gathered them all together and said, who is our competitor? And they said, oh, other pizza joints. And I said, okay, let's think wider. And I held up a Sony CD. And I said, this is our competition. And I had a lot of puzzled looks, and people thought, okay, he doesn't speak Portuguese, so there's something wrong with this gringo who's talking to us. And I said, how much does this CD cost? And they said, oh, about 15 reais. And I said, how much does our large pizza cost? And they said, oh, 15 reais. And the light bulb went on, and they said, oh, we're competing against the discretionary dollar. Well, that's what we're going to have to do after COVID-19. There may be some dollars that you think, if I could just scoop those few dollars, it would make my business go. Well, we already know that in March, restaurant sales went down 68%, except for the pizza joints. Their takeout contributed so much to sales that their same store sales beat the previous year by 15%. Now, they were prepared. They already had their takeout boxes. They already had everything set up. So you want to catch your competitors asleep and scoop them, steal their customers.
all right, so we are going to go on to, oh, I missed a slide. So we're going to go on to this slide, the recovering revenues. This particular slide you will find at the end of this presentation. I listed 3 different articles. This is in one of the articles. Jim, would you like to talk about the recovering revenues as an important element?
Yes, thank you. This comes out of that first article from McKinsey that's posted, and this looks theoretical. I just want to focus you on a few things. First is M&A, mergers and acquisition moves. I'm going to ask Lynn to comment on what he, Fred, and I spend a lot of our time doing.
Sure. One of my parting comments on this whole webinar today is, in every adversity is a seed for an equal or greater benefit. There are times when things come along and we're forced into a mode where, if we're going to survive, if we're going to prosper, if we're going to grow individually and as a business, we have to look at who we are, we have to look at our approach, and we have to look at what we're doing. People get lazy sometimes. They get complacent, and in all number of ways. And in particular, one of them is, how do I run my business? How does that work? Well, so here we are. Now, in what we do, by the way, in Veteran Business Project, we are a singular organization in this country where we match up military veterans and spouses with businesses that currently exist that are looking to divest or to sell. Now, you would think that we've been doing business in this country for decades and decades, that somebody would have come across this template, but actually it has not been done. It happens locally from time to time, but not programmatically nationwide. We refer to it loosely as V-Harmony. There's E-Harmony for people looking to find other people, and then there's V-Harmony, and that's who we are. We're matching veterans and spouses up with businesses looking to sell. Well, here's reality. Before COVID-19, just so people understand this, we have an aging small business ownership workforce out there. In terms of just the veteran population, that is to say the current number of veteran-owned small businesses in this country, 50% of that population base is age 73 or older with no succession plan. Well, guess what? They're being put into that mode right now, some involuntarily, and also in terms of non-veteran-owned businesses. So we were in the midst of a large wealth transfer going on in our country, even before COVID-19 came along. So what's happening now? Well, people that have been in business for a good while are now looking to frankly move on ahead and move into retirement, that kind of thing. So what does that mean? That means that there's going to be very, very large numbers of businesses that have been good businesses, that have been viable businesses that are looking to sell. And frankly, some of those businesses are going to go for 10% or 20% down, and the rest is going to be financeable. And some of the financing will be done by current owners by way of taking paper back, if you will. So I tell people, be on the lookout now for businesses that have existed, but the owners are now wanting to move on ahead. Don't be afraid to go into a store and to ask the owner if they have thought about selling. People would be very much surprised. This is in the area of acquisition. Merger, of course, is where we merge our company or our business with somebody else. That's there, that exists, those opportunities are there. But very much in the acquisition side now, there are going to be lots of opportunities out there. We're already evidencing them. In our business right now, in our nonprofit, we've got, I think now, 225 different individuals we're working with that are in the process of looking or actually buying a business. So this is only going to increase more and more and more. So guess what? There's opportunity out there. No one wants to be put into that position where individuals have been hurt, and therefore, you know, that we think, well, who's going to do well or have opportunity as a result of that? This situation has been put upon us through no fault of anybody. Here we are. So another way of looking at it is some of these people want their businesses to go on. They want to have their business continue on. Well, here's a way that we can do it by bringing to them viable candidates that can buy their business. So that's what we do. Look at yourself as a viable candidate. What kind of business would you like to be in? There are boots to business programs out there galore that can help you zero in on what it is you think you might want to do. But be very attentive to what's happening in the marketplace. Get on the computer. I tell people, you know what? Now's not a time to sit back and be lazy and be caught and just go along with the flow. This is Fred Parrish world. Get out ahead of it. Figure out what's going on. Get in the computer. Find out what businesses are selling. If you want to know what works in business, look around at your competition. There is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun in particular. The one factor are human beings, how we treat one another, how we appreciate one another, and how energetic we are and focused we are in going about our business. You don't lazy your way into anything. You don't lazy your way into success. You don't lazy your way into discipline. Now's the time, frankly, I tell people, they're being forced to be lean and mean. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. So here we are. But a lot of it has to do with attitude. Let me finish on that part. As I said, in every adversity is a seed for an equal or greater benefit. Positive builds and negative kills. People that are on their toes, that realize that we will come out of this. This will happen. Is there going to be some businesses going down and going out of business because of this? Yes. Yes, most unfortunate. Most unfortunate. So how can we then make something positive happen out of this? It starts with our individual attitude. Are we going to stay on the ground? Are we going to get up off the ground and move forward and try and make the best of this? Brian Tracy says there's two types of people that bounce and people that break. We need to be people that bounce. Get back up off your hind end, find out what's going on, look at who's being successful, and do what the successful ones do. Let me add one more thing. I'm a lawyer, right? And one more thing. We've got the computers. We've got this iPhone. You've got an encyclopedia in your hand. There is no excuse, none, for not being on the cutting edge of what developments are in the restaurant business. Jim, there was that article I pushed over to you earlier today. We talked about it. Do you have that handy? It's a great article on just restauranting and what's happening. Yeah. You read that and you go, oh, look, this isn't over by any stretch. One of our co-founders of Veteran Business Project, Dale Eisenberg, had a original pancake house for 42 years, very successful. This last weekend was the first weekend when there was alfresco dining here in Chicago. He did 65% of what he would have done on a regular day, and he didn't advertise for it like he knows he should have. And he said, I could have had more than 100%. He said, I came up short on chairs. So, people want to eat. People want to get out ahead of it. Be creative. Don't be lazy. Yeah. Get on this and your iPhone and start finding out what's going on out there. Don't wait to be spoon-fed like a chick in the nest. Go get the information, dig it out.
Well, let me throw this back at Fred. On this chart, you see ECommerce Analytics. I live here in Silicon Valley. There's only two things that are key to thriving. One is user experience and user interface. Those are two separate analytics. So if you're running a restaurant or a hair salon or you're an artisan, your competitor that has one fewer click to transact a sale is going to beat you. So make sure that you look at what's the user interface on that iPhone or on the computer when people order, and what's the user experience. So include those things. And most of you probably have not. The other thing I really exploit is millennials couldn't cook a meatloaf. Their lives depended on it. And so you want to serve comfort food, man, meatloaf. Make it easy for people to order those simple things. But make sure you measure it, because otherwise you're not going to, there's nothing that helps you for all of you veterans. There's nothing that improves aim better than having a target. Well, that target is the report card.
Yeah, that's great, Jim. And the idea that you have a target is absolutely critical. However, the other aspect of that is, as you go through time, how close are you coming to hitting that target? If you are not hitting your target and you're still looking at that target, that's a problem. You have to adjust your target to match what you know today. What are the conditions on the ground right now? And what do we expect those to be over time in terms of revenue? How much do you think you can generate? Is that going to be on some kind of terms through accounts receivable, some kind of billing, or is that going to be cash through your POS? And the timing of when you receive that cash is going to be just as critical as the amount of the cash that you're going to be expecting. And there is just about every one of those points in that box has cost associated with it. It has activity associated with it. And there is an element of generating business that comes from it. How you quantify that and put that information together in a weekly forecast. How much revenue do I expect for the next 6 months by week? When do I expect it? What are my fixed costs? When do I have to make those payments? By week for the next 6 months. What about your variable costs? As you sell things, you have costs associated with that. You have to lay this out. If you can do it in a spreadsheet, that's great. If you can do it on the back of a napkin, do whatever you have to do. Update it regularly. You know where you are today. You should know where you are today, and you can put a plan in place. A week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, revise the plan based on what you know then, because things will change over time. Your plan will never be static. It is a dynamic plan, and it will always be changing. So those targets are going to be moving, and you have to pay attention to how close you're coming to them.
Yep, and having a dashboard, because we know you're paying attention to 1,000 things. So put up a dashboard, create a dashboard so that it keeps you focused on those 3 or 4 different measures to tell you whether you're making progress or you're actually hurting your business. Very simple things that will give you back time. And as the customers come in, we created this 4 decades ago, my wife and I, was just to hand out a customer feedback card. Only had 2 questions. One, on a scale of 0 to 100, how much did we delight you? Second question was, what's one thing we can do better? That keeps it very simple. And if you start adopting what most people are telling you, that one thing you can do better, you're going to beat your competition.
Thank you. Sam is going to come on because she's got a question.
Yes, hi. I've been listening to all of your comments, and I work every day with small business owners throughout Massachusetts who are coming to us for advice on how to run their businesses. And one thing that have struck me is that the mindset that people are having right now, most of the folks that I've talked to during our conversations, we've had to work a lot on that mindset. Not so much everything that you're talking about in regards of creating a dashboard, which is super important, knowing your goals, knowing your numbers, all of that is great. But if you don't have the right mindset to be able to run that business, it does affect the outcome. I wonder if any one of you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would love to. I was in combat in Vietnam, and Lynn and I have known each other for 53 years. And we share these war stories. We say, okay, things are bad, but at least nobody's shooting at us. That's mindset.
Yeah. Jim makes a really great point. You know, the combat experience really levels out the planet real quick in a lot of ways. We see discussions nowadays on what's happening here. This poor gentleman that was killed up in Minnesota and so forth, that kind of take us on back to who we are or should as a person, as an individual, as a community, and so forth. The wonderful thing about what Jim and I went through is combat levels everything out. We in the Marine Corps, we fight as a team. It doesn't make any difference if you're rich or poor, what your skin color is. None of that really matters. It's who you are as a person. So we fight as a team. The attitude is all important in everything, in every aspect of your life. So when Jim and I roll out of bed in the morning, we think, thank God we're alive. You know, no sucking chest wounds. I'm not bleeding out. I'll be all right. You know, we get through this. We get through this, and we will. But it really is an attitude every day, and I think we ought to be, number one, try to remember those things. It's a lot different at age 74, frankly, where Jim and I are at now than when we were 22 in combat. That's for sure. A half a century has gone by. But you look back to some of the things that we have all gotten through in this country. We've had every manner of things happen in our nation. But, you know, we're accountable to us. We are responsible for our reaction to decisions and circumstances around us. Woe is me, and feeling sorry for ourselves takes you to one place, and it's not success. It's not to maximizing your potential. So you do need to look at yourself every day. And number one, be thankful that you're getting out of bed alive. Be thankful that you've got challenges in front of you. There's a place in every town where there are people that have no challenges, no problems whatsoever, no disappointments, you know, none of that going on at all. It's called the cemetery. They're there. We're alive. So there is really nothing, by and large, that we cannot get by and can accomplish if we're positive, if we're looking to be a positive reflection to other people. Sports, you see it. If you go in thinking you're going to get beat, get ready to get beat. If you go into warfare thinking, oh man, we're going to get our lunch handed to us today, it's going to happen. Count on it. But when you put yourself into a positive framework, when you're looking for opportunities, when you're resilient, when you stay focused with an attitude that I'm going to succeed here, I'm going to succeed, the mind kicks in things that go into motion that objectively might not be accountable for or readily seen. But in the end, it's everything. It is everything. It all starts with our attitudes. There's all sorts of people out there that have said these things a lot more articulately than I ever could. But it all does start with a frame of mind and an attitude that if I'm going to succeed, no matter what. And then your mind starts to go to work.
Well said. One thing I want to throw in, Lisa, is cash flow. Right now, you probably have a lot of suppliers who are calling you, emailing you, and banging on your door to see if you would pay them or you can pay them. So this is a time to go to your bank. And the lesson is you need to know your banker real well, because a lot of banks are extending their business line of credit. So I'm going to ask Fred how to manage cash flow, because he's the expert.
So I'm just going to jump in just for a minute, because we've only got about 2 minutes left, and then we got to, but that's a good way to end.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it comes down to, just to follow on what Lynn was saying, you know, just do one more thing. If you're tired, if you're beaten up, if you just are not sure you can take one more step, just get in your mind, I'm going to do this one more thing. And when you do that, I'm going to do one more thing. Don't look at the whole picture. It's the same thing with cash flow. Take it one piece at a time. Look at what your revenue is. Again, project that out. It's fine and good to know where you are today, but especially in the world that we live in right now, what is most important is where you are going to be 6 months from now and what you are going to need to do to get there between now and then. What kind of cash are you going to expect? What are you going to do to generate additional revenue? How are you going to collect that revenue? How are you going to put that revenue to work in your business? Again, real simple spreadsheet, week by week. This is how much I think I'm going to have coming in. These are all my expenses. This is when I expect to pay those. You take your beginning balance of cash, add in your receipts, just subtract your disbursements, you get a net balance. That's the beginning balance for the next week. And just build a very simple spreadsheet to give you that information, and change it whenever you know something is changing. Stay on top of it. If it gets out of control, if it gets away from you, the worst thing you can do is not have enough time to address a problem. If you think about, let's just say, a $10,000 problem 10 months from now, that is $1,000 a month for you to address. If you run up on that $10,000 problem with 2 or 3 weeks ahead, it's a $10,000 problem. The more planning you can do, the further in advance you can do it, the better you're able to address anything that comes up.
Great. Thank you so very much. As you can see on the slide, I was keeping up there with everybody's email address, and they're just little reminders. Also, I want to make sure everybody knows that we've got the webinars, the next two series, they're out there, and you'll be able to see them because this presentation will be put on the MSBDC website. Yay. Thank you very much, Lynn, Jim, and Fred. Yay! I greatly appreciate you taking the time and coming out here today and talking about adapting, because that's one thing that we need. I also want to thank Anita and Sam for making this happen, and we would not have had it if it weren't for either of them, so thank you both so much. And thank you to the SBA and the Center for Women Enterprise, SCORE, and all of the other wonderful stakeholders that Sam had mentioned earlier.
Yes, thank you, Lisa, and thank you to all of our wonderful speakers today. Thank you for being with us here today. We want to thank again all of the organizations that are co-hosting today's webinar, including SCORE, the Center for Women Enterprise, Mass Growth Capital Corporation, Valley Community Development, Common Capital, the Franklin County CDC, the Massachusetts Small Business Development Centers, including the offices in UMass, in Western Mass, and Salem State, and hosted by Clark University. And of course, our stakeholders, the SBA, the State of Massachusetts, UMass Eisenberg School of Management, and UMass Amherst. And again, here's the contact information for the folks in our region who are ready and available to help you with your business. Here's a list of all of the offices, MSBDC offices throughout the state. And this all information is available on our website. We want to thank again all of our speakers. And Lisa, thank you so much for moderating today's panel. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.